Tonight, Target 8 is looking into rural health care, and some parts of mid-Missouri don't have much of it when it comes to hospitals. KOMU 8's Danielle Katz mapped out our area and is in the studio with where these areas are and how thousands of people are going the distance in times of crisis.
I mapped out all of the hospitals and ambulance bases in mid-Missouri, and I found that 9 counties in our viewing area do not have a hospital. I then mapped out driving directions and found numerous cities and towns that are more than 25 to 30 minutes away from the closest hospital. And in an emergency, minutes matter. I spoke to one man who's working through the time crunch in 2 of these counties.
If someone calls and says, "I don't think my husband's breathing,"
Lee Kempf has fought the clock for more than 20 years in rural health care.
anything that you can think of that, boy, I think an ambulance should be there in 10 minutes, it's just not going to happen when you're that far away from people.
He understands that some people want a life away from the cities.
People have a tendency to like to be off the beaten path so that they have nothing but nature around them.
He took me on a ride around his district, where privately maintained roads also pose a challenge.
Some of those roads are sometimes virtually impassable. Now, can you imagine coming down here in the wintertime?
And even for a vehicle equipped for the conditions,
sometimes this truck will have a difficult time getting in, let alone our ambulances.
Increasing response time when it matters most.
Can be up to 25, 26, 27 minutes before they get there.
Then there's the transit time to actually get the patient to a hospital, and that can mean life or death. For example, the American Stroke Association says patients should get a CT scan within just 25 minutes of symptoms. Out here, that's not going to happen. From where I'm standing in Versailles, the Morgan County Courthouse is more than 40 minutes away from the closest hospital, Lake Regional Hospital in Osage Beach. This is typical for Versailles, where some of its surrounding cities, like Ivy Bend, can be up to an hour away from the nearest hospital.
If we're deep in Ivy Bend, the total time from the time we get the call until the time we are back in service is around 2.5 hours.
Kempf says his district gets multiple calls a week from Ivy Bend. He has 2 ambulances in Morgan County and 2 more in Montauk County.
When I first came here, we had 4 ambulances, and we've responded to a total of 1,000 calls district-wide the first year I was here. We now respond to about 3,300 calls.
I mean, if I was having a heart attack or a stroke or something, I would want to get somewhere quickly.
One Versailles man told me he wouldn't even try to get to a hospital in a dire emergency. He'd go to his local doctor.
We'd probably go there first and then let her get a helicopter or whatever she needed for an emergency situation.
Kempf told me his district's ambulances drive more than 45,000 miles a year, and the rough roads wear them out. He doesn't have the money to add an additional ambulance because he has to buy at least one of them every year. And if this has you wondering how far away you are from the nearest services, the map I made with all of the ambulances and hospitals in mid-Missouri is on KOMU.com. In the studio, Danielle Katz, KOMU 8 News.
Now, coming up tonight at 10, we'll examine one area of mid-Missouri where there is no dedicated ambulance. So 2 end up getting called, potentially at the expense of patient safety.